So if you think about it, from the moment of our birth, we're given a script, we're handed a set of beliefs, we're placed into a religion, sent to school, taught a history that may or may not be true. That automatically places us in a very limited paradigm about what's possible or not. Most people, when we think about what the masters, the superhumans, and the gurus are able to demonstrate, we think of it more like the Superman movies, more for entertainment rather than entrainment.
Hey, Guy here. I just jumped on quickly record and I'm looking at the color of my face. Can you tell I just had a sauna? Oh my God, I need to look in the mirror more often. Anyway, the reason why I'm jumping in before my beautiful guest, Dr. Carol Talbot today, is that I released 2 podcast episodes last week. One was with Paul Selig, the channeler, and that podcast has had an incredible response. But the reason why something I want to say is thank you, because at the beginning of that, I talked about how my podcast views have halved, and I don't know why. But anyway, I'm really happy with the podcast and the content I'm creating, and just asked if you wouldn't mind subscribing to the podcast to see if it helps. Anyway, the response I had has been unbelievable. So thank you. I really appreciate it. And it's a great episode as well. And then I recorded a solo podcast Friday, which I almost didn't record, around about willingness. And the response from that has been absolutely beautiful and incredible too, because I've been slowly getting in front of the camera more and just being a bit more open and just sharing from, my own journey, my own perspectives and stuff like that. So anyway, I just want to say thank you, because where else can I do it if I don't put it in front of a podcast or, on social media? Things get lost anyway. So if you're a regular listener and that, just know that it's really appreciated. And this podcast today I love it, mate. I love this stuff, because what I love about today's podcast with Carol is that it just makes me wonder about what is possible. I love the wonder kid in me, and this podcast and these conversations, and it goes deep and it goes off in different things. I guess it's a bit sciencey at first, but don't let that bombard you. It's great. So let me know if you enjoy this as well below. Anyway, much love from me. Thank you. And enjoy, and I will see you soon. Welcome back to the podcast, I should say, Dr. Carol Talbot, even though it's your first appearance. It's our second take.
Thank you.
So I first stumbled across your work while you were speaking about Life and Teachings of the Masters of the Far East. And that's a book that I did listen on Audible many years ago that blew my mind. And I was curious to know about, what did those masters know that we didn't? And if it's, or even potentially what we have forgotten that they knew as well. And maybe even explain a little bit about the book, because many people might not even be aware that this book exists.
Well, I think the book was actually written at the end of the last century or late 1800s. A group of scientists, about 11 scientists, went to the Himalayas to meet and spend time with the masters. And during their time, they witnessed all sorts of phenomena, such as walking on water, nourishing themselves through prana, universal energy. They didn't seem to need to eat or drink for long periods of time. They also demonstrated teleportation. So when you see these kind of phenomena and read about them in these fascinating books by Baird T. Spalding, I think he published it in 1924, it begs the question, if they can do it, why can't we? And so I believe that they came to show us that there is that potential in each and all of us. But sadly, our bodies, our DNA has got distorted. And I believe the key lies in our DNA, because our DNA is a transmitter and receiver of consciousness. Not only that, we've been through massive conditioning and programming. So if you think about it, from the moment of our birth, we're given a script, we're handed a set of beliefs, we're placed into a religion, sent to school, taught a history that may or may not be true. And so that automatically places us in a very limited paradigm about what's possible or not. So for most people, when we think about what the masters, the superhumans, and the gurus are able to demonstrate, we think of it more like the Superman movies, more for entertainment rather than entrainment. So that's my take on it, that we're carrying a lot of distortions. Is it possible? I believe it is, and that's been my quest to find out and push my boundaries of what's possible.
Well, I can certainly say from my own experience, I've realized that I don't really know a great deal of anything as you kind of open up more and more, which is profound. And just when the ego and everything starts to get in, all these limiting beliefs, you get humbled. That's kind of been my experience so far. So it's opened up my curiosity factor a lot more these days, as opposed to just pushing it away and just thinking it was nonsense in the past, which I find interesting. What has been your experience then with looking at this in the first place? Have you had your own kind of experiences that opened you to this, or have you been curious your entire life?
I've been curious my entire life. I remember as a child having wonderful dreams of being able to fly, and they were so real. And many people have had flying dreams. And as you get older, those dreams tend to get shut down by, as I said, education, programming, conditioning. But for me, they were always, tickling it in the background. And so I love learning. It's my passion. I absolutely love learning, but in particular, I love coming across unusual information. So with that in mind, I've, studied a lot of what I call the ologies and the eropes. I've been blessed to study with many wonderful masters and mentors, but I was always seeking that kind of like massive awakening where you get the bells, the whistles, it does it 3 times so you know that you didn't miss it. And I didn't find what I was looking for, particularly in terms of my own psychic abilities. So I had a lot of friends surrounding me most of this time who were psychic, and they used to go, "Did you see this? Did you see that?" And I'd sadly go, "No," not realizing that my gifts were to open in a completely different way. So I have no regrets on the seeking and searching that I have taken, but I've always wanted to push the limits of what's capable. So with that in mind, I also went on a month-long program to learn to walk on water. Did I succeed? Absolutely not. I sank every time. But I am a master firewalk instructor, so I teach people to walk across burning hot coals completely unharmed, which of course many people believe is impossible. And it is a belief. And so I've watched thousands of people walk across those coals completely unharmed. I've also liked to go on programs and put myself in situations that are a little bit different. I also went on a 10-day, 10-night darkroom retreat, which was also part of pranic living, learning to live off prana, which is the breatharian approach, a little bit radical as well, but learning to live in a different way without food as a way to repair my DNA. So I'm what's termed a level 3 breatharian, which means I do eat. On occasion, I can eat. However, I do not have a dependency on food. And you only have to look at the food that we're offered these days, and there's really not much nourishment in it. So it further distorts our DNA. And I believe our DNA is a transmitter and receiver of consciousness and the gateway, really, to the multidimensional realms.
Wow, that's fascinating. I did not know that about you either. It goes to show, doesn't it? When inviting someone on organically, we can have so much more fun in conversation. There's a couple of things I'd love you to explore or explain for me and help us understand more. From what I understand that you're saying, there's a way of accessing a field of information, whether it be the quantum field, the 0 point field, I don't know, whatever names and terms we have of it, and harnessing that energy or information and somehow then using that within our body's structure to improve it or enhance it, or in some instances, you speak of not eating much food and things like that. So you're using energy to create energy, and it's bypassing the eating system. Is that what's happening?
Well, again, I chose a drastic path, and I want to make clear that this isn't for everybody, and it's also about holding a frequency. So I have a PhD in quantum morphogenetic physics, and my thesis for my PhD was bioregenesis of the human DNA blueprint through source feeding. Source feeding is the Breatharian path, so hence my experimentation with that path to see if it was possible to tidy up my DNA. Because if you think about it, you know, what mainstream science calls junk DNA, I believe is intron DNA. Intron meaning potential. And I believe in that potential, as I said earlier, lies the gateway to the multidimensional realms. So if you think about DNA as a transmitter and receiver of consciousness, right now, the majority of that stream of consciousness that should be available to us is turned down. It's like on a dimmer switch. So we only get a portion of consciousness that should be available to us. And the masters, the gurus, the superhumans also demonstrated that there's a huge more amount of consciousness available to us. So how do we start to access that stream? So think of consciousness, or DNA rather, like a film strip. And when light hits a film strip, it projects what's on the film strip onto a screen, right? So you watch the movie. But if there's glitches on the film strip, then the movie you're watching is going to have scratches and glitches on it. And so it is with our DNA. If there's distortions in our DNA, then as the small amount of consciousness that does come in, when it hits that, it creates a distorted reality in terms of trauma, dis-ease, the way you perceive your reality. So my view was, let me start to tidy up my DNA and see if my outer reality starts to change as a result. So hence my research in bioregenesis of the DNA blueprint through source feeding the Breatharian path. Now, multidimensional intelligence developed as a result of my thesis and taking it a step further, which multidimensional intelligence is the capacity to perceive, to transmit, to operate beyond linear thinking. Now that sounds like a bit of a mouthful, so let me just give a little bit of a demonstration, because not a demonstration, more of an example, because it's more about bandwidth rather than storage capacity. So many people watch Netflix, right? And if you have a Netflix account, you need to set up an account with a password. And then to watch anything that's streaming on that network, you log in with your password, and you can watch anything that's available on Netflix. But if you want to watch something that's on a different channel, then you have to create a different account, a different password, and log in again to watch what's streaming on that platform. So it has limitations. When you understand the field that we're bathing in, the quantum field or the multidimensional fields, people have different names for it, you realize that you don't need a password, that you're bathing in this sea of consciousness and information 24/7. And most people have insights and glimpses of their connection in terms of maybe they'll have a brilliant idea and wonder where that thought came from, or they'll think of somebody and that person calls almost instantly. But the fact is, they only get glimpses of that connection. And that's because the connection is poor. So it's how do you upgrade your capacity, your operating system, so that you're connected 24/7. And that means you open up to a huge, vast amount of information. It's unlimited, Guy. Because think about, if you go diving, you can only dive to a certain depth, else the pressure, you'll implode. But if you go in a submarine, you can go to a deeper depth. The depth is always there. It's just your ability to access it. And so it is with the multidimensional fields and realms. And I believe this is part of what the masters, the superhumans and gurus were demonstrating, that it's your ability to hold more, your frequency, because everything is energy and frequency. And as you expand your frequency, you upgrade your capacity, and in streams more levels of consciousness, more wakefulness, more awareness.
I love that explanation. Thank you. So there's a couple of things that come forward for me when you speak of these things, and I'm thinking of the listeners as well, is how do we, so what is consciousness? So that's assuming that we are photons of light that is hooked up to a biological vessel, allowing us to experience it. And it's through the DNA. Is that what you're saying? Is that because if the DNA strands are holding information of trauma or of past experience or past lives, however we interpret it, that is becoming our reality because the light is being shone through that film strip that's shaping our perception. Would that be a fair way of
Yes, it would, Guy.
recapping it?
You've got it.
Yeah?
You've got it. Yes, so that was my view on let me tidy up the DNA. And I put my thesis into a book, which is called Reimagine You, Bioregenesis of the DNA Blueprint Through Source Feeding. Now, that was published at the beginning of 2025. And I didn't expect to write another book. I have long gaps between books. I'm talking 8 to 10 years. But an idea came to me in March of that year. And you know when you have one of those ideas and you go to sleep, but you can't sleep. So rather than lying there tossing and turning, I like to get up and do something. And during one night, I mapped out the whole of my next book, which was Multidimensional Intelligence, Activating a Higher Blueprint for Human Evolution. And I thought I was writing just a book. However, as a result of the book and as writing the book, in came the multidimensional field scans, which you have experienced. And then as a result of that came the entrainment series to help and support people get from here to here, and also the mastery mapping frequency technology, which is not a device, it's internal. So everything is energy, everything is frequency, everything is consciousness. But we understand that energy has a consciousness. So when you think of the chair, the desk and everything, you don't think of them in terms of consciousness because they're not a type of consciousness that we can understand. Yet they are energy oscillating and vibrating at specific frequencies. Now, you have a baseline signature frequency, which creates a kind of, I refer to it as a playground. So that different situations, different people may not be an exact frequency match, but they're a match enough to come into that playground. And this could be certain friends, certain people, certain drama, certain trauma, even certain dis-ease. So that's your baseline signature frequency. That's also how you think about your identity of who you are. So I also have the ability to get your optimal timeline. And as you know from the field scans, it also highlights certain optimal timelines, different pathways that may be open to you. So we get the baseline signature frequency of your optimal timeline. And then we want to move you from here to here. Now, we can't just whoosh. That would be really nice to move you into that optimal timeline frequency because we need to entrain you. Else, if any of you have ever done, if you've experienced plant medicines, you'll know that it puts you into different frequencies very quickly and you access different information, but you can't hold it. And often when people come back into this frequency or their normal resonant frequency, they can't even put into language what they've experienced, what they've seen, what they've felt, what they've heard. So incrementally, it's training people to get to that new frequency. And it starts with first understanding the identity that you've been operating with. So another example I like to give here is actors get given a script, a role. And when they're given the script and the role, they're also given the backstory of the character so they can really fully immerse themselves in that character. But once they've played that role, then they discard it and they get the next script and they move on and become a different identity. So the first thing is we need to realize that if you're holding such a strong identity, and many people I hear have a strong backstory of who they are and what they came from and who they came for, their ancestral patterns, their karmic patterns. And again, the multidimensional field scans highlight this. They give you a satellite map. So it's about shifting identity. And the first way to do that is through coherence. Most people cannot hold a strong signal cleanly. So, Guy, if I were to ask you to think of a positive experience and hold that positive experience for 15 to 30 seconds, chances are you probably could, because I know that you're very aligned, very coherent. But for most people, their thoughts would be all over the place. And that shows you that the frequency that we're emitting that creates your outer reality is not coherent, which means the resonant frequency that you get back is going to have distortions. So it's like going into a cave. If you shout, your voice comes back directly. But for most people, when they shout through their frequency, they wonder why what's coming back is not what they were just thinking. It's more than just thoughts. Your thoughts, your emotions, your DNA, your very being, your identity is sending out a resonant frequency, keeping you in a specific playground. So my work is to help people move quicker to create a new playground, a new resonant frequency. And Guy, this has basically come about through my own curiosity to upgrade my own frequency, and also by my curiosity throughout my whole life. If the masters, the superhumans, and the gurus understand how reality and materialization and manifestation work, let me see if I can discover how it works.
Thank you. There's just a slight delay, so I was just pausing, so I didn't want to just jump in there. There's a few things where my brain is going with everything you just shared. So when I reflect, like, it all resonates. And when you offered to do a field scan with me, I didn't even know you did them. And you said, and I was like, yeah, sure. When you sent me through the reply, I was like, oh my God, that is spot on. You know, it really resonated right through. But what I'm intrigued with, and maybe you can elaborate from your own journey or how you help people, is what I discovered with myself is as I kind of went inward and brought more awareness and more intention to different areas of the body, I would even imagine light coming in or pulling it down, and then I would feel trauma start to move. It's almost like my body would start to release. And sometimes I felt very uncomfortable for a couple of days while it was going through, but I had enough awareness to hold capacity for myself to allow what it wants to do. And then it felt like there was a fundamental shift internally. And it's almost like there's been a stepping stone of these movements, shifts through my life, and it's accelerating and allowing me to hold a different baseline frequency to the one that my body was capable of before moving that. I'm just trying to put it in my own words of simplicity. Is that what you found on your journey, or how do you help others? There's a couple of questions in that, but I'm just really curious.
So I've always been a kind of doer and an action person. And many people are, we think we have to do more, to be more, to have more. And what I've discovered is less is best. And yet that's very, very uncomfortable, very uncomfortable. But it brings you into a stillness, a silence, and a stasis. And I shared with you, I went on a darkroom retreat where I spent 10 days, 10 nights in complete darkness. And it was also part of my transition into pranic nourishment. Now, if I'd done something like that about 10 years ago, I would have been, clawing the walls, because everything slows down when I would imagine it's the closest to a near-death experience or that transition time that you can have, because you're one of the biggest senses is taken away. You can't see. And it's so dark that if you hold your hand in front of your face, you can't see it. So you develop your awareness in a different way, and time slows down. In fact, you would have thought I would have been twiddling my thumbs if I could have seen them. But actually, I didn't get bored at all. It allowed me such time to go inwards. And I think we dismiss and we tend to feel that doing nothing is bad. So when people say, how are you doing? It's like, oh, I'm busy. That's the normal. Where really the true path that the masters showed us is that less is more. It's the stillness, the silence, the solitude, and the stasis, which so many people are uncomfortable with. When you slow down, the world opens up in a different way. So again, a lovely metaphor is the hummingbird. If you watch the hummingbird, its wings flap so quickly, it's a blur, you can't see it. But if you use a high-speed camera, you see every single movement. And so actually, when you slow your world down to go within and become totally coherent, rather than sending this scattered signal of, I'm busy, I'm doing this, and you think about the world, there's this noise, this music playing, and come into alignment, your thoughts, your nervous system, your emotions, then so much more becomes available to you. And we live in a world that is constantly pulling you outwards. We have our smart devices. As soon as they ping, we want to look at them. You go to a shopping mall, the mall is playing music. Every store is playing different music. Our nervous system is basically shot. So that shows you that the signal that we're sending out is all over the place. So the way that I work is, the first call really is the multidimensional field scan, which is a mirror of that which is in your field. It's like giving you a satellite map so that you understand your energetic signature, your mission. I liken it to most people are walking around in life in a dark room. They can't see the wires that are tripping them up, the furniture that they're bumping into. And this means that they're continually tripping on the same wires financially, in their career, in relationships, in their life in general. So the multidimensional field scan literally switches on the light. It gives you the satellite map so you can see the wires that are tripping you up. So it could be karmic blocks, it could be ancestral patterns, it could be mental loops. There could be so many things. The multidimensional field scans look at about 15 to 16 different areas to give you the big picture. So it switches on the light, basically, so you can move the wires or shift the furniture around. You know what's tripping you up. Now, they also act as an activation guide, because if you've been to the top of the mountain, you've seen the view, even if you never go to the top of the mountain again, that view is in your field. So it starts to create shifts and changes and realignments. So many people tell me that when they start reading their multidimensional field scan, that because, as I said, I don't do them live. The information becomes pre-language. So what takes me the time is to put it into language. But they tell me when they read it, it starts to create shifts and changes. Things start to align. And then to support people further, this is where I developed the entrainment series, which is an audio series. They're just 20 minutes, binaural, specific frequencies. They've also got non-audible subliminals on them as well. But again, the first step in the sequence is coherence. So the first track is coherence, because that's the first step. When you're misaligned, that's the frequency that you're sending out. The second is resonance, which is the echo you get back, and it's your relationship with the outer world. The third audio is alignment, to lock in a new timeline. And then the fourth one is embodiment. I did create a fifth one because, Guy, I found that a lot of people, including myself, you have that phase where nothing is happening. It's like, but I'm coherent, I've done the work, I'm aligned, I'm feeling good. Nothing is happening. And that's where, Guy, you need to remember that we live in a time-space reality where there's a time lag and a time drag between aligning with a frequency and it materializing in the outer world. It's a bit like if you had a thought and it manifested instantly, you'd soon tidy up your thoughts. You go, oh, no, I didn't mean that. This is where the masters, the superhumans and gurus have been able to shorten that time lag and time drag so that you can materialize almost instantly. And as you become more embodied, you see that happen in your own life more and more. And I'm sure you do, Guy, because again, I don't hold anything from people's field scan when I'm complete. I close their field and I close my field. You don't want my field in you, and I don't want your field in mine. But you saw from your own that your chakras are really aligned. I see with a lot of people on a more spiritual awareness path that often they focused on their chakras from the heart and above, and they don't have the grounding. So it's bringing that consciousness not just into the top chakras, but right down and going down to the root of the earth to become fully embodied.
I'm standing here right now in Lake Taupo in a beautiful retreat space. And there's a vast difference between an intellectual experience and passive listening to a fully embodied lived experience. Because that's what retreats can do. They can help you land, start to truly reconnect to yourself, to others, to nature, and to spirit as well. There's so much in it. That's why we created Live in Flow, and that's why we are so passionate about getting this work out there and bringing people together. If you want to find out more when our next retreat or event is coming up, just check out the link below. And now, back to the podcast.
Yeah, and my body has been majorly adjusting, like, because I mentioned about the back pain as well when I was filling in the form. And for those lower centers, because it feels like my body is adjusting to allow the soul expression to come through more and more. That's how I kind of look at what's happening on my personal journey through everything you just said. But the paradox is, and something that resonated for me even in the after the reading, but what you're saying is the paradox being the slower you go, the faster you get there. And we are so not set up in life for that in Western world, are we?
No, and this is where, people say, oh, I need to go on another course, I need to do this, we want to do. And as I said, I never share anything that I've not been through myself. So I am one of those people, I love learning, but I also love to push the boundaries of what's possible. And noticing that discomfort when it's like, surely I should be doing something. And what I will say is in virtually everybody's report, virtually, I would say 99% of the reports, the field scans that I do, on, I think it's section 12, which is keys to accomplish your mission. one of them is rest as repair. And that comes up in virtually everyone's report, that we don't acknowledge that we need to rest to repair our system and to get back into alignment. And most of us think taking a little bit of an afternoon snooze is a little bit of a bit naughty, unless you're living in the Mediterranean culture, where an afternoon snooze or a little siesta is very acceptable. But really, it's very necessary to take those, small naps and get back into alignment. And we see, even if you're out and about, how quickly we get pulled into an argument or there's noise going on. And you'll also find, and Gaia, and I'm sure you have on your path, found that your tolerance for noise and drama becomes less and less. And as you go more into silence and stillness, you realize that whether it's back pain or neck pain or aches and pains, your body communicates with you. It talks. And of course, we know this from the field of kinesiology, but it allows you to listen rather than what mainstream world says, take a Panadol, take an aspirin, mask the pain. So our body has to speak louder and louder and louder. But there are many, many gifts when you start to listen.
Absolutely. On a side note as well, Matt, who I run the retreats with, there's two. There's Matt Omo and Petra Brozovic. But Matt, he literally just did his first 3-day darkness retreat. And he's just got back from Bali a couple of days ago. And we recorded a podcast a few days back on it. But yeah, he said it was profound, absolutely profound. And that was just 3 days of darkness. And
well, there's a lot of other chemical things that happen in the body when you go into darkness. So he did 3 days. So the first thing that happens in the first couple of days with darkroom is you release massive amounts of melatonin. And of course, we associate melatonin with sleep. So it's very good to sleep with complete darkness because it allows the body to heal. Melatonin is key in repairing your DNA. So during even 3 days in darkness, your body goes through masses of repair with the masses of doses of melatonin that's being released, and you'll sleep a lot. The next phase that happens is you start to release something called pinoline, which is responsible for lucid dreaming. And the longer you stay in the darkroom, more chemicals get released in the body, such as 5-MeO-DMT. So there's lots of different things that happen. If you stay even up to about 15 days, you'll start seeing infrared, and you'll start seeing the energy and the light body around people, even though you're in complete darkness. There's actually a tribe in Colombia, if I'm not mistaken, where they handpick certain children and they're kept in darkness for the first, I think it's about the first 9 years of their life. And for then, when they come out, some of those children stay another 10 years. Now, they're not being cruel, but some of those children are what's called custodians of the earth, because they see, hear, and feel different things in different ways. They understand the energy, the frequency, and the oscillation. And let's face it, we need custodians of the earth at this time. And we need more people who are more aware and prepared to do this work and understand more of who they are, repair their DNA, and be able to bring more levels of consciousness in.
Yeah. Because when we look at the book, the Masters of the Far East, the Ancient Teachers and Masters of the Far East, or whatever it might be, it'd be very easy for the mind to go, well, where they lived in a monastery, they were completely still. Everything was done for, they didn't have to think about work or bills or life and, what we're accustomed to in modern day living right now. But you only have to look out onto the world at the same time and see, it doesn't take long to tune into the craziness of literally what's happening. And even when you're in Dubai and what you've been experiencing out there, it's almost like the world is shaking us into waking up. I don't know, but what would you say to people that obviously have to live and get on with life at the same time, but at the same time are wanting to experience a different reality for themselves within their own inner world, but also then what reflects on the outer world?
This is where coherence comes in, and the reason that I created that audio series, because we are constantly being pulled in different directions. Being in this region at this moment where we're on a ceasefire, but we've had the public alerts go off on the phone, and when they do, they literally do jolt your system. And sort of, I can understand, many people in this region have been brought up in war-torn zones. And so there's trauma in their system. And so it brings up very traumatic memories and situations for them. So we talk a lot about resilience, but resilience is being able to respond and react to situations. Being able to bring yourself back into coherence quickly isn't so much about reaction. It's training your system to be in an aligned state, so that when there are outside things going on, you can maintain a stable signal. And the other gift here is you become the signal that stabilizes the field and everyone around you. So all organisms read energy, Guy. And we do, but we've just gotten lazy. So I'm sure you've had the experience where you've met certain people and you've gone, oh, something's off here. Or you walk into a room and you think, oh, good vibe here. But imagine if you hold your signal and that level of coherence so strongly that when you walk into a room that's unstable, filled with people with trauma, with upset, and I know this is exactly what you must do on your retreats and your programs. Just your presence changes the field, changes how people feel. And you know that because people say, oh, I just feel better speaking to you. I just feel better being in your presence. However, they can't be in your presence the whole time. Our goal is to uplift their frequency and their level of coherence. And so, to me, this is the work that we do also covertly. I remember one of my mentors, when his gifts awakened, he could literally tell what was going on with people. His psychic gifts came online just like that. Yet, he couldn't go up to people in the street and say, hey, mate, check out your liver, because they'd go, who are you to tell me that? You can't do that. But what he learned was he could maybe use his energy to maybe send that thought or idea, and he'd never know whether that person later thought, I'm going to have my liver checked. I think something's a bit off there. So, as I said, but the frequency, if we can hold it steady, embodied, entrained, coherent, we have the ability to sort of impact those around us in a very powerful and positive way.
Do you feel that this time in history right now, that the frequencies are changing from a planetary perspective, that are then allowing us to feel into and lean into the field more, that's then bringing our gifts online? Do you think this is a time in history where more and more people's gifts are going to come online?
The fact is here, because there's so many distortions in our DNA, is when I said, it's like consciousness on a dimmer switch, only a little bit comes in. And this is the reason that the majority of people do not remember our true cosmic history, and we don't remember who we are. As we're able to turn up that dimmer switch and allow more consciousness to come in, we start to remember our true cosmic history, the brilliance of who we are, the eternal life that we should be living rather than the finite life that we've been given. And we remember who we are. We remember that it's time to reawaken our DNA. And remember, the masters and the gurus showed us what's possible. Now it's time for us to wake up. And so while one part of the planet and the conditioning, programming, control system is trying to pull us more into the outer world, being controlled, these are your beliefs, this is the box that you live in. There's another side where many people are saying, you know, I don't think that's true. I believe there's something more. And I do watch TV and movies, and I'm very particular what I put in my field. But there are some very, very interesting thoughts that many people may see as entertainment. But when you start to see the messages and the ideas, then it allows you to open up and question our reality and say it's not just a movie, it's implanting thoughts of what's truly possible. And that's what I hope to do with the multidimensional field scans. Give people the satellite map, the mirror of what's in their field, so that they can see the possibilities, that they can move those wires, the karmic patterns, the ancestral lines. They can understand their body is communicating with them and start operating in a more aligned, coherent way and up their frequency.
Interesting. Why do you feel or think, or do you have an opinion on it, that some people wake up to this potential and others just don't, and locked into this other paradigm? Because I even wonder why, like, how did I end up waking up to this? You know, I was. It's just I do ponder on these things sometimes.
Well, there's several streams of thought we could go there. There's a wonderful book called The Disappearance of the Universe. It's based actually on Course of Miracles, but in that book, he says there's nothing out there. So, you know, if you talk about forgiveness, you're really just forgiving yourself. So everything you see in the outside world is just a mirror of that which is within. It's a holographic perception. And actually, if you think about it, Guy, we can't prove anything or anyone or any situation exists outside of ourselves, because our entire experience of what we call reality is experienced through our nervous system, our five senses. So actually, the outer world acts as a beautiful mirror of that which is in our psyche. And I often tell people, you know, this is where when you start to develop your awareness and you get triggered, you understand that those triggers are a beautiful gift to look within and start tidying up your own reality. In one of the fields that I worked in for many, many years, I'm a master NLP trainer and ran NLP certifications for many, many years. But one of the frames around NLP is perception is projection. In other words, the outside world is a mirror of you. Now, if your outer world is great and there's certain people that you love and like, that's brilliant, because that's a reflection of you. But when there's certain people that trigger you, or there's certain aspects that we don't like, most humans have a tendency to go into the blame game. We go into the victim. It wasn't my fault. But I always say the degree to which you're on the effect side of the equation is the degree to which you're giving away your personal power. And when you start to recognize that the people, the situations that trigger you are like holding up a mirror, as I do with the multidimensional field scans, but from a bigger perspective, you understand the gift that they give. So one of the quick ways that I explain this is often people say, how does that work, Carol? Because I look at this person and all they do is they take, and I'm a giver, I give. And they just take, so how is that a reflection of me? Well, if you really look at the person that you perceive as taking, what are they really good at? They're good at receiving. Now flip that back to yourself, and you'll see that maybe you're a good giver, but you haven't learned the balance of also being a good receiver. So anyone or anything that triggers you can reflect back to you maybe things that are hidden that you haven't seen yet. So once you can recognize that, it clears. Sometimes it clears automatically. Sometimes there's a little more introspection to think about there. So to me, this is where more people are waking up and becoming aware of their outer world as a reflection of them, and that they have a responsibility and ability to shift that purely by how they choose to perceive it. The other stream that I also believe in is non-playing characters. In other words, that there's almost like fillers. If you look at it like a movie, I'm the main character and other people are filling in and playing their roles accordingly. So going back to what I said, most people hold an identity and they have a script for that identity. If you want to shift and change, then it's a shift in identity and changing the script. Just like an actor, when he's playing a role, gets given the script, he also gets the backstory of that character. So think about what identity, what backstory do you want to create for yourself that's going to move you forward? And this is where I always say, I don't need to be a clairvoyant to accurately predict where people will be in 1 year's time, 5 years' time. When I hear their story, they give me all the clues of what's coming up. So if this is the trajectory, the timeline that you want, but from the multidimensional field scans, it shows other options, other different pathways that are open to you when you start shifting your thoughts, your frequency, and your identity.
So it really feels to me, because you're kind of leaning into what we then manifest into our lives, right? And there's such a materialistic view on manifesting that tends to be out there, which just drives, yeah. But from what I understand from your interpretation, like if we really allow the space to shift the frequencies within, the world is going to just slowly shift to that timeline and reflect back what's actually going on in our inner world. Because to me, when we start leaning into manifestation of especially materialistic things, then that's telling me something that must be, then I'm not whole or complete. There's something lacking in me and I'm not going to feel it until I get that. And to me, then that's mirroring back the wrong thing that I want to resonate from in the first place.
Well, not necessarily, Guy, because the human potential is growth. Growth equals life, growth equals evolution. And if you think about it, everything on this planet is either growing or dying. Which side of the equation do you want to be on? So again, the human urge, the human need is for growth and evolution. And we only need to go back to our great-grandparents' time where, you know, they modeled that you had a job, you stayed in that job, you retired, and that was it. And you saw many people aim for retirement, but because they'd kind of like lost that oomph for growth, for evolution, they actually started deteriorating. So, you know, when people say to me, oh, Carol, you know, you've just celebrated a birthday, you're thinking of slowing down, going to silence and stasis, yes. Stopping, absolutely not. Because remember, going back to as you allow more of that stream of consciousness in, the depth, the capacity, all the information is there, and your ability to hold it and to see it, to understand it, just evolves. Another way of describing it is, if you think about, as a child, we're given the letters of the alphabet, the A, B, C. But then we discover that we can put those single letters together to create words. Then we discover the words make sentences, then they can make paragraphs, stories, books, movies. Then you learn more words, you learn more. So it continually evolves. And so it is when you understand the quantum field and the multidimensional fields, that there is always more to discover, and that's the beauty. But the beauty of the discovery doesn't come so much from the noise, from the doing. It comes more from the being.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Absolutely. Last question. I want to close a loop in my mind with everything that we've been covering was about the state of coherence. And do you feel that, I mean, I pretty much know your answer, but I just want to ask you anyway, but about a level of coherence that we can hold so we're never affected by the external, that we can just resonate a state of presence? Is that what the masters were doing at the end of the day?
To me, it would be that's true mastery. And as you said, many of them live or have been brought up in very remote parts of the world. You know, when you go in the dark room, Mantak Chia had a purpose-built dark room at his place in North Thailand. And he'd always wanted to take people into caves to experience the dark. But again, most of the caves are dirty, full of tourists and things like that. And so to disappear from life as the masters and the gurus did is not practical so much these days. So we have to think about the world that we live in. And this is why although I created the entrainment series, with coherence, resonance, alignment, threshold, and embodiment, it's not coherence, tick, I've done that, let's move on to the next one, tick, done that. It's always going back and forth because life pulls you. You get into your car, you get caught up in traffic, you get angry. It's your ability to get back into alignment rather than the playing the record on repeat and repeating, oh, I'm so annoyed, I'm so angry. We tend to play that again and again and again rather than the ability to let it go and come back into alignment. So it's a bit like, I would imagine, Guy, when you're running your beautiful retreats, that no matter what else is happening in your life, whether you've woken up and there's been a disturbing phone call or disturbing information, you're about to go into a retreat and be with people. You get yourself back into alignment so you show up. And it's the same if I'm doing a keynote. If I'm about to step on stage, it doesn't matter what else is going on in my life. I come to the table fully present, ready to share. And any leader, any master knows how to bring themselves back. So that's the energy that they share with the world. That's coming back and knowing what coherence feels like, what it sounds like, what it looks like for you, so that you can bring yourself back into that state constantly. And that means you're sending a coherent signal out into the world, into everyone around you. So it doesn't mean that shit's not going to happen. It does. Life happens, but also that's how we learn to grow and evolve into how to handle these situations. And some people, that's what they want to materialize in their world because that's the pathway to biggest growth. I always say it's chaos or crisis that creates evolution. Not this, it's when things go this and this, we go, and it may be a financial crash, a financial fall, a physical fall. But our world rocks in some way, and we evolve to a whole new level. And I think the field of cymatics gives us a wonderful demonstration of that. Cymatics shows us how frequency impacts matter. So if you put sand or salt on a tray, key in a frequency, it goes into chaos first, and then it aligns with the frequency. Turn it up, goes into chaos again, and then it aligns, as do we. That's our evolution. That's our beautiful path of growth.
Ah, well said. Yes, love it. Love it. Is there any last words you want to add or anything you want to address before we wrap up the podcast? One thing that keeps coming to mind is about that you mentioned right at the start about playing and having fun with this as well. Be playful.
Yes, I do. And actually, it was it's just been my birthday, Guy. And usually when I have a group around the house, they expect that we'll do a meditation or we'll have some incenses or a sound healing or a sound bath, something like that, or breath work. But instead, I don't know whether you've been on Instagram and seen the Taylor Swift little dance and things like this, the Fatal Ophelia, and also there's the Billie Jean challenge. So did we laugh? Absolutely. So again, I think sometimes consciousness, spirituality, that world can be very serious. And I always remember when I used to teach yoga, let's face it, you've got your backside up in the air half the time. Let's laugh and have some fun while you're doing that. So I think fun and laughter are really, really important. But what I would say is the path to mastery means the letting go of everything in your life that represents mediocrity. So the masters, the gurus, the superhumans, they all showed us what's possible. Are you ready to push your boundaries of what's possible?
Wow, that's powerful. That's so powerful. Thank you for sharing that. And I just want to share something, and I'll share it with the audience as well, because I've not spoken about this at all yet. But my daughter is one of my greatest teachers about play at the moment, because about a month ago, we started trying to stick coins to the wall with telekinesis, just using our heart, our intent, and our mind. And just through messing around. And I did it once. And I was like, oh my God. And I haven't been able to replicate it. My daughter saw the coin stuck to the wall, and she can just go bang. And she's done it about 4 or 5 times now. And she just plays and finds it hilarious. And there's nothing to it. She doesn't care if she does it or not. And she's just having fun. So for me, it's a beautiful reminder to just stop taking everything so seriously. And who cares what the outcome is? And you never know what happens then.
And how wonderful, children are such a wonderful example. And the fact that your daughter does it without any intention of whether it works or whether it doesn't, because it's just play. And if the coin drops, if it didn't work, it's absolutely fine. But when we want to do these things, we're so intent rather than just, bending the spoon or lighting the lamp or sticking the coin to the wall. If we just do it as a game, it's fun, and there's no good, bad, right or wrong. As I said, I went on a month-long program to walk on water. Did I succeed? No. I did succeed, though, at, I'm a master Firewalk instructor. I can teach people to walk across burning hot coals. So there's certain things we can do. There's certain things that, maybe there's still a few things to master. And isn't that the beauty of learning and discovery?
Exactly. And look, on that walking on water, did you witness somebody do it during that month?
On the course that I did, no. None of us managed at that time. Did we do other magnificent things like putting your hand through a wall and all sorts of other incredible things? Absolutely. So I would say it's not being fixated on one thing, sticking a coin on the wall or hand through the wall or other things. It's recognizing also that we all have different gifts. As I said to you, I spent my life wanting to be psychic, to see things, to be clairvoyant, clairaudient. But my gifts have come in different ways, more of knowing. And when I do the multidimensional field scans, the information comes in pre-language, which is a very quick form of telepathy. What takes me the time, and why I don't do them live, why I do them as a report, is it takes me time to put it into language. So my gift has come in a completely different way that, quite frankly, Guy, it blows my own mind when I think of, and when people like you receive your scan and go, oh, wow, it warms my heart that I was able to discover my gift. So it's different for everybody. So I think it's acknowledging where we are now and keep exploring.
And to see what happens. Yeah, where can we send people to? What's your website, Carol?
The website is multi-dimensionalintelligence.com.
Beautiful, beautiful. Well, there'll be a link in the show notes anyway.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I loved it. It was
my
awesome
pleasure. Lovely to connect, and thank you for reaching out. I've so enjoyed sharing with your audience.
Thanks, Carol. Much love.